Okay, so let's just quickly look at what just happened here. So we had a bit of a run up in the first day of January. It looked like, okay, January 2024 was going to be very bullish for us and things were looking really good. And then all of a sudden, Solana just this morning went from, $109 it was down to 84 in a matter of less than an hour. Crazy. Ethereum, Bitcoin all did the same thing. So Ethereum was close to 2,400, about 2,380, and it dipped down all the way to about, let's see here, 2,100. So a big jump down. And then Bitcoin, same thing, was up at 4,500, 45.5 almost, and dipped down to 41. So quite a jump, to be honest, but this should be expected. And so this is one of the things I want to talk about of what's going to happen in my opinion this year is I think it's going to be an up-only year. We're going to see some really, really big returns, but we need to expect pullbacks like this. And to be honest, probably even bigger pullbacks than what we saw today. It's very common to see 30 to 40% pullbacks that will happen in a couple of days. And I'll show you some examples of that in just a second. But let's just talk about what just happened. In case you weren't aware, if you haven't seen, the reason this happened, supposedly, I guess we still don't know for sure, but it's likely what happened here was that some company called Matrix Port, which is a company that really no one knows in the space, is not really the most legitimate thing ever, but they just put out an article saying that they expect the SEC to reject the Bitcoin spot ETFs this week. That was it. They said probably we'll see a 20% decrease in Bitcoin price as a result, and that was it. But it wasn't for sure this was happening or a rumor that it's happening. It was just an opinion piece. For whatever reason, it spread around Twitter and markets dumped as a result of it. It's very similar to what happened a few weeks ago when the intern at Cointelegraph or whatever said that the BlackRock ETF was approved and all of a sudden the markets, spiked up 10% or whatever it was in a matter of an hour. It's very similar, except the opposite way. So quite funny. But really what happened here is the reason why things dumped so much is because we started to have a lot of open interest. And so what that means is leverage in the markets. So really what happened is that article spooked a bunch of people, okay? Some people market sold. So they sold a bit of their Bitcoin, ETH, whatever, but not enough that it would actually, knock things down 10, 20% like it did. What actually happened here is it was liquidations. So there was a lot of leverage in the markets. Funding rates were about 66% annualized. So very high funding, which is basically just degens doing what degens do. People were expecting the Bitcoin ETF was supposed to get approved this week. It still might, who knows? And so there was a lot of people that were over leveraged. And within less than an hour, we saw $500 million in liquidations. I think the last thing I saw here was actually $1 billion in liquidations. So that's what actually made markets dump so much. And then I think people realized, oh, this was just a spook. It's not that big of a deal. And so we're already seeing things start to climb back up. I mean, Bitcoin's back up to 43,335 as I'm recording this, just a few hours after all this happened. Ethereum is at 22.36 and Solana is at $100 again. So if you had a chance and you happen to buy on that dip, then you did really, really well in a matter of a couple minutes, really. So this is why you want to be prepared in these markets for these sort of things. You don't want to get scared when they happen. Instead, you want to actually be ready and have money ready to buy when we see these pullbacks. Because again, this will happen 10 times this year. I would bet it happens close to 10 times. And so let's walk through what is going to happen. The last thing actually I just want to comment on this is, so crypto has a lot of leverage, which means it can move. That's why it's very volatile, right? And so news, things like this, like we just saw with Cointelegraph a few weeks ago, this one, it can move markets very, very fast. It's not just random. It's not just a coincidence. There are, like, the big boys are coming into this industry now. I mean, BlackRock's getting an ETF, et cetera. There's a chance that they wanted to buy some Bitcoin. They wanted to seed their ETF at a lower price. And so they spook the markets this way, right? They don't even need a news report. They can just dump a bunch of Bitcoin real quick. It liquidates a bunch of people. Price goes down way more than they actually liquidated themselves. Then they buy back in much lower. This happens a lot. And this is why we'll see so many pullbacks over this bull cycle. Again, this happens every single cycle. And it's the big players, the big whales that can manipulate markets. Remember, Bitcoin is still under $1 trillion, Ethereum even smaller, Solana even smaller. And so the crypto industry is just small. And these whales, whether they're big banks, whether they're just like big investors, whether they're central banks, like we don't know who's doing all this, but they can control markets pretty easily. And especially when so many people are leveraged, it's very easy to blow up markets like this and then buy back in really, really low. And that's likely why we saw such a jump back just from these markets, just from that. So anyway, something to be aware of. Sometimes it's good to have buy orders on at certain low levels because you just might get them. If you do, it's just a gift. But anyway, that's what happened here just on January 3rd. And we should expect more of this.